Hello, everybody. It's Jessica Dupuis, and we're back talking about the wines of Southwest USA. Today, I have a very special guest that's going to join my friend. Oh, and there she is already. She's on time. I love it. I'm going to let June Rodil in, and we will start our conversation. 1 second. Here we go. We'll see if that connection works. Here we go. Here's
Hi.
Hello, how's it going?
Not too bad. It's super pretty today, so got a lot of wine events as well.
Yeah, oh, you do? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we're actually doing Southold tasting debut for their wine club today at Montrose Cheese and Wine.
No way!
Yeah, it's so awesome. Yeah, and
Oh,
we're doing the Broadbent selections tasting right now
okay.
as well.
Cool.
So
That's a
wine
good one,
everywhere.
too. That's a really good one too. So I love it. So just so we can get started on the right foot here, for those that don't know the lovely June, tell me who you are and who you work for, and that Houston stole you away from us in Austin. Um,
Austin still has a big piece of my heart, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm June Rodil. I was in Austin for 20 years and worked there for a very long time, and still have so much love for ATX, for sure.
yeah.
And started my career there at Uchi as a beverage director, and just really had a really lovely time of working for awesome people there. So I worked for Uchi as the beverage director. I opened Key, I opened Congress and Second Bar and Kitchen, and then most recently I was the vice president of operations at McGuire Mormon, where I have a restaurant partnership, June's All Day, still on South Congress. And I moved to Houston to start a restaurant group called Goodnight Hospitality, and we have with COVID, we have 2 functioning locations now, and we'll have 4 whenever we can.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's talk about that. So Montrose Cheese is doing what? Like, y'all are still in operation and okay. Rosie
Yeah, totally
Cannonball.
great. Rosie Cannonball is great. We had a honky tonk, a live music venue and bar called Goodnight Charlie's, but with the regulations, and honestly, concept wise, it just doesn't make sense. So we actually flipped the concept this summer into the Spritz patio, and it became an outdoor dining experience. I'm kind of an offshoot of Rosie Cannonball, which is Southern European comfort food. So that was kind of more of like a spritz, low alcohol, day drinking into night drinking, Mediterranean bites and stuff. We're actually about to flip the concept again into a chalet theme. So Alpine chalet
Oh, will you have
with
raclette?
fire pits.
Will you do
And,
raclette?
we have raclette at Montrose Cheese and Wine. We're going to do tartiflette at the chalet.
Oh,
It's gonna
okay.
be fun.
Well, I will come visit. So I don't think I realized that that's where y'all were doing the spritz and everything. I thought it was somehow a part of Rosie, but I guess that wouldn't have made sense. I haven't been,
Yeah,
obviously.
it's just right next door.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. All right. So I think it's fun to be talking to you, because I was thinking about it leading up to this. I was trying to think like where you first had some serious impact on my life. And it was actually when you had just opened up Congress and Congress Bar. I mean, we had met before that, but I was just starting my studies in sommelier certification. And you taught me how to blind taste. You're the first person that kind of broke it.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
That's awesome.
You broke it down for me, and I'll never forget. We tasted a Malbec, and like I was just amazed at how you had three things like right off the bat, like here's how you can know what, this might be a Malbec because of this, or this and this. And I just was like, I think I'm going to be hooked. Like, I think
That's awesome.
I can't wait to do this. And I think it's just because of the energy that you bring to wine education, right? Like,
oh, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's huge, I think, especially for someone who is starting out back then and feeling honestly really intimidated by it all. That one, you can run into people like you who have such great energy, but then also can approachably break down just the whole process, and that it can be done.
I like to be approachable. I I like all the nerdy stuff, but I think it's really important to be able to talk it through. I think in the end, especially if you're in hospitality, you've got
Right.
to be able to translate things properly to people. Hi,
Right.
Michael Cruz. And like being able to translate all of the knowledge that you have to actually make an impact, you've got to understand people's language, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I think so
I mean,
too.
you know that you're a writer, so
Yeah, yeah.
you go,
We
yeah.
do it in different ways, but yes, it's important. So so thanks for that. That was a long time ago.
Oh my God, my
um,
pleasure.
but so one of the reasons I thought it would be interesting to talk to you is one, you always do such a great job, or I've sat in on different seminars and different opportunities where you've kind of talked about the business of wine and things. So the first thing I want to open up with is just because this book obviously talks about Texas wine and then a few other different states, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. I'm just curious, kind of early on in your career, how Texas wine was kind of introduced to you, how you came about it, and kind of what your first impressions were versus where things are now.
Sure. Well, I mean, I learned about Texas wine from Lewis Dixon,
Yes,
actually. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes, the craziest of the craziest, the
Yes.
awesome of the awesome. He was a friend and regular at the Driscoll and the Driscoll Grill. I mean, spooky old Driscoll Grill. That was where I kind of got my start as a person of the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
I was still in college and just really fell in love with it and started falling in love with wine there. And he had just really amazing taste, and he was he's such an eccentric. I had no idea that he had a winery, made wine. He was just like this guy who drank expensive wine and was super opinionated. And then as we came to know each other, I actually went to his winery, and Tony Katori was there.
Are
Like
you
it was
kidding?
like back, no, it was way back in the day.
Yeah.
Like prior to the tasting room being open.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it was such a great, I like stayed overnight and like, you know, made pizzas with Tony. Bill Blackman was there. He was like the first
Oh my God.
wine person that I ever met. I mean, Lewis is a wine person, but you know what I mean? Like Bill
Yeah.
Blackman's a farmer, you know?
He's real deal. Yeah. Not that
Yeah.
Lewis isn't either.
Yeah, I know, but like he was like, this is who I'm learning from. And
Yeah.
it was such a special experience. Um, I didn't know anything. Like we crushed that day. Uh, Blanc de Bois, like
Mm-hmm.
we tasted wines, like he had just gotten wine glasses that were etched
With the
like it,
La Crucicola.
with the logo Lacuza Comal on it.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And I just remember, I mean, they definitely, his wines have kind of a natural
Mm-hmm.
perspective. So I was very taken aback, and I really enjoyed them because they're so wild,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so wild and full of flavor. I had never heard of Blanc de Bois. I had never heard of Black Spanish, but it was just the experience was unique. The wines were unique. So I was really interested in it. And it was very early on into my wine career as well. So I mean, I wasn't even in a wine career. I was a server at the Driscoll Grill going to figure out what this guy was doing in terms of like Texas wine. So I didn't really have a perspective. So I kind of learned about Texas wines as I was learning about wines in general. So, you know, that was the first time I saw someone like clean a pump.
Wow.
You know, I saw that before I tasted Bordeaux. So it was a pretty special experience. As I like learned more about Texas wines, you know, that was in like 2000.
Yeah.
2001. I
Yeah.
think I was 21, something
Yeah.
like that. It was pretty and now, I mean, now we're doing like launch parties for Southfield
I
Cellars
love it.
today.
I love
So
it.
it's super awesome. And I think that, you know, we see people who are coming back to Texas from, you know, from their expatness of the Texas world and bringing back, you know, their knowledge of other wineries and wine regions. And I think it's super special.
Yeah.
We've got international grapes. We've got non-Vitis vinifera grapes. I think
Yeah.
it's really kind of settling into itself. I said the other day, like, when you have such iconoclasts now, like Southold, like Lewis, like all of those things, like you start realizing that the region is settling into itself when you have room for iconoclast personalities.
Yeah.
I
I
think it's
think
good.
that's an interesting point that you make. Cause like, as you meant, like Southfold, right? You've got Regan Meter who's coming from his experience making wine in another kind of emerging region of America, if you will, right? Like, so he was doing it in New York, and he's like, all right, I mean, they had a whole set of problems that y'all can read about, but he's here because he's a Texan, and he's like, why not just do it in Texas where I'm from? And I love it.
Yeah, and doing crazy stuff. Hi, Ray.
Hey.
Doing super crazy stuff. Like I was like, what the hell are they doing over there? And
Yeah.
this tastes good.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think that there's like, the tourism is fabulous. I think that the quality level is super good. And honestly, it just gets better every year. There's still a lot of room to grow. I won't lie. Like there's definitely like other regions in the world. One of the things I was thinking about, it was like other emerging regions. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, these regions aren't really emerging. They've been there for a while. I just don't know about them.
Right.
I've never been there, I haven't latched on yet. And it's kind of like other regions, there's always room to grow.
Right. Well, it's interesting you say that because I agree, right? They're not emerging like Texas, the modern Texas wine industry really kind of kicked off in the 70s. Same with California, same with Washington, same with Oregon. I think it's interesting though, because you know about Washington wine, and that's because Washington wine has done a really great job of making sure you know about Washington wine, right?
Right.
Um,
Yes.
and
I
I
mean,
think
they
that,
travel to Asia,
yes,
to
yeah,
make their mark on the world, not just other states.
yes,
Because other states are, I mean, I think it's very interesting. You make a really great point. Other states are vying for a place in their surrounding states or major markets in the United States. And there's such a high level of competition outside of California, Oregon, Texas actually has a really great foothold and marketing for the U.S. wine industry, but there are these wine regions that are just like, F it, like that's too much competition, and I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna go to a different country, and
yeah.
it's really ballsy, and I think it's paid off for them.
Yeah, yeah. Not to make this a whole thing about Washington wine, but I have been thoroughly impressed by their marketing efforts. And it's that research that they put into it to understand where do we need to go, where we're missing,
Mm-hmm.
and we have an opportunity. But I think that's important for us to talk about right now, because that would be my hope for regions like Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, because I do think Texas has been going for a while now, and going strong. We have a large number of wineries, but are we all cohesively putting forth a message to get the rest of the world to pay attention to us, or the rest of the state even? So I think that's something that I would hope comes down the line in the near future. So I love that you're doing something with Southold today, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what would your advice to be? Like, how did that happen? Did Southold just knock on the door and say, June, can you please, we want to do something with you guys?
It
How
was
do you,
all our wine director, Lauren Lee
oh,
at Montrose Cheese and Wine. She's
yes, I
amazing.
love her.
Yeah, she's so fabulous. It's dear to her heart. I honestly, I shamefully will say that I've never been to the winery. I suck. I just haven't been able to make the time.
You've been a little busy.
Yeah, Lauren has, and she fell in love with them. We've always had a placement on the shelf. It's done well, and then they hooked up and reached out, and
That's
I
great.
mean the answer was yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Especially it is about relationships. Like it's
yeah,
about product. It is about product first. It's about whether or not that product fits within your concept, but that thing that tips it over is the relationship that you have with people, and they have a great relationship. So
right.
we say yes.
I love that. So
Yeah.
what would your advice be to, let's say, whether it's Texas, or let's say Arizona wines want to start coming into Texas? Like how does that start? Do they just walk in with a bottle of wine, or what would your suggestion
No.
be? Okay, good. I
It's
hope
so
you say
it's
that.
so hard. I know that there is that ground floor grassroots aspect of wanting to come in and have that,
Yeah,
beautiful moment of bringing a bottle of wine to buyer, and then, sparks fly and everything's great. It's just hard. Like it's honestly like it's hard to drop in on anybody. Anytime. Like appointments are super important, and I think doing market research of buyers and concepts and understanding if your wine fits within the concept. I had this wonderful talk with this marketing company for Oliver Winery, which is in Indiana,
Yeah.
and it's a very big winery, but they do sweet Muscat based wines, fruit wines, things like that. And they had all these questions for me about our market, and I was like, I live in Houston, in the Montrose, and unfortunately, I don't really go outside of where I live in the Heights in Montrose because that's just, my life is like our restaurant. So I really couldn't say what the average Houston buyer
Yeah.
as a consumer was doing. So I think market research and understanding who you are and what you want your wine to be. And, if you want to be in a boutique wine shop, you have to ask yourself, is your wine supposed to be placed there, or did you want to move pallets?
Right.
And both are good, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like I shop at Target and I shop at By George, like there's a place, and there are beloved articles from both places of which I purchase. So there's beloved wines from Costco that I buy, and then there's beloved wines at retailers like Montrose Cheese and Wine that I love too.
Exactly. Well, and Thomas Price just made that point. Like you do have to do your research, right? Like salespeople that just don't even read the wine list. They just hear that
Yes.
you're a cool restaurant or it's a cool new retail shop, and they're like, I just want to be in it. I don't care what if you take, like. And
Right.
I think that that's what I get asked. Even though I don't buy. I'm like the journalist. And so a lot of times I get asked like, we really would love to be in such and such, I would love it if June would like give us a try or whatever. I'm like, first of all, she's actually not buying the wine. We should call Lauren Lee.
Yeah, very few people realize that. You should talk to
Yeah.
Mark Devon Sayer. Mark Devon Sayer is his handle. He is a buyer.
Yeah. Let's bug Mark. Ah, yes. But so, right. It's, who are you going to reach out to? Who's the right person to reach
Right.
out to? Because I'm sure you get asked all the time and you're like, here's who you need to talk to.
Yeah.
But then also, yeah, really paying attention to what wines you already carry. Like, what
Yes.
is it that y'all are after?
Right.
And
Yeah. Good point, Thomas Price. It's like you do this for a living.
Sounds like you might know what you're talking about. Yeah. I love
But it is true. And I think it's okay. I think, everybody struggles to figure out who they are as a human being. That's part of the identity of your wine and your winery as well. It's an extension of you. And I think you've got to be okay if it's not the right fit at a specific place. There's so much wine out there, and there's so much wine that's so good that doesn't fit in any of our places, like we strive to find Texas wines that make sense. Like we've got a lot of natural wine selections. We have a lot of classic wine selections as well. So we kind of flip flop, but we don't have a lot of Texas wines because we have 125 SKUs of millions of SKUs of the world. So we generally rotate what our Texas wine producer is and are able to highlight them. So there, it's hard to give love to everyone that you appreciate, but I think it's important for wineries to understand that there are moments where it will work, and there are moments where it's just, you gotta let it go, which it sucks. It sucks to say that. It sucks to say, it's hard as a buyer to be able to say like, it's just not a right fit. Like, this is so good, and I happily will say that and advocate for it, but it just might not be the right fit for our concept.
Well, and that's something that I think, I don't get defensive, but I like to be able to say, for in defense of you guys, right? Like if it were called the Montrose Cheese Texas Wine Shop, you should have a lot of Texas wines there, right?
Yes.
Or regional wine shop or drink local, right? But I think that it's amazing that you can put one Texas wine on that list next to, like you said, like classic wine regions and things like that. That speaks for the whole industry. And so I do think that it's important from my perspective, I think, to look at it from that way. And to continue to try as different producers to continue to make quality wine and make that like your big focus. But then also it's not okay to say, well, that restaurant or that retail shop, they don't care about Texas wine. They don't have a big Texas wine section, so they don't care about us. That's actually the opposite of what y'all are doing. I think that's important to note. So I'm glad we're talking about it.
Yeah.
It's out there now.
It's hard. It's not that we don't love Texas wine. It's that
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of shelf space
Yeah.
to put everything that we love on there. Otherwise, there would be way more burgundies on the wine list, y'all. I mean,
Yeah. Well, I
true.
remember walking into Montrose Cheese the first time and I was just like, okay. I mean, like you could easily knock things over if you move your elbows too much, right? Like
Yes,
it's tight.
700 square feet. It's
Yeah, I'm
nothing.
actually pretty impressed that y'all fit as much as you do fit into there. But it's fantastic, and that wine selection is also not your run of the mill, and that's something that y'all strive to do as well. It's not just something you're going to go find at Specs or somewhere else. It has to
Right.
be highly curated. So, I think that's a really good point to make. Have you guys? And it's okay if you don't, but like what are the chances that you might find a wine in there from in the future, not right now, but like New York or
Oh,
Michigan or
strong.
yeah,
Strong chances. I
yeah,
mean, I feel we've done Element, of
yeah,
course.
of
Chris
course.
Bates'
Go
winery is
Chris Bates.
fabulous. Yes, love him, love him. We have done Empire, which is also from New York. Haven't done anything from Michigan, though I have had the what is that producer? El Mobby, like
Oh,
they're
mommy, the
known.
wines. Yeah, the
Yeah,
sparkling
yeah,
wines.
yeah. They're
Yeah,
known for
yeah.
sparkling wines.
Really good.
Super
Yeah,
cool stuff for Michigan. So I don't know if they're distributed in Texas, but I feel like that price point is actually they're not.
I don't think so. I asked.
No,
Yeah.
pretty
Um,
cool. They're pretty cool. Actually, like a volunteer from Texas from Michigan sent me a bottle. It was so sweet, and
oh,
it was really good. And then I learned about the vignoble grape. Did not know that that existed. French hybrid. There
right.
you go.
Yeah.
So I think yeah we have wines from like all over Eastern Europe. Like if it's good, there is likely a place and time for it. It just, we may not go like off kilter too often, but yes, we love finding good wines from different places. I think
Yeah.
it's super interesting.
Yeah. So I'm going to pivot to the other direction here in terms of the fact that, like, you have been an integral part of education for wine professionals in your career, and I think that people really look to you for advice on how to manage or run a wine program, whether that's in a restaurant or retail. What's your advice to buyers as they are flooded with wines from all over the world, but then also wines that are made more close to them? So how do you share with them the ideas of, do you bring this in? Do you bring that in? I know it's about fit, but kind of how do you expect or suggest they approach the subject?
I think it's about finding that language again, especially if we're talking about a winery talking to a buyer or a buyer figuring out who they are. There's a lot of people who are steeped in the classics because that's what they're studying for. But what they don't realize is that you'll actually understand classics more if you start kind of expounding your knowledge elsewhere as well, because then you'll find their inspirations, regional inspirations, why things. You'll start asking why, like
Mm.
why Blanc de Bois in
Yeah,
Texas?
yeah,
Why Black Spanish? Why are these grapes happening here? And I think that that's super important. And it's also really important to understand what the rest of the world is drinking. So,
right.
I mean, my advice to buyers and a lot of people who have, worked at the places where I have, they have always tasted Blue Nun, Yellowtail. We tasted every vintage. We taste it blind. It's very important to understand boxed wines. You've got to know what the bigger community is and understand that we're really in a niche market
Yeah,
and where our place is, because then you just kind of get too full of yourself. I think it's important to know and be okay with other styles of wines. It's kind of like, I was talking about Oliver Winery, but
yeah.
I remember we were at a Texas wine competition, and we had this. It's called Hula O Maui
Yes, I remember.
pineapple sparkling wine
Yes,
from Hawaii, and we were all like, "This is the shit! It's awesome!"
it was
And it's
delicious.
made from pineapples. And then there was like this blueberry wine, and we're like, "This is really balanced." So, like it
Yeah,
isn't saccharine, and to be able to understand that something that's not made from grapes has balance, like. Come on, we drink cocktails, we drink cider, we drink beer. We can do that. And I think that sometimes we just kind of try to make it all fit into this little classic box of like, it doesn't taste like Chablis, and
right,
forget to ask ourselves like, is this delicious, and what would
right,
I pay for it?
right. which is such an opportunity. Now we're going to plug Texas, I guess, because that is such an opportunity when you,
It is.
yay, when, you know, when these judges are tasting wines and they're entered from all over the world, but also from all sorts of different markets, even within America, right? And so these judges are tasting blindly. They don't know what they're tasting. And because I've been a mentor on, you know, for the Somm retreat, and we see all the golds come through, it's always fascinating to watch. Like,
I love it.
You know, if you were talking in some conversation with your friend one day, you probably would never have said that that would have been a gold medal winner, and yet it is. And like with that retreat, we are encouraging the Somms who are participating to think about that. If this made it through and this was you know, recognized as a well-made wine, that means there's a market for it. And so,
Right.
like you said, like you got to think big in that way before you can
Yes.
drill down.
Yeah, and you've got to make the time. It is very time consuming as a buyer to like know that you're tasting outside of concept as well. Like
Yes.
we do beverage classes, and they may not be applicable to Hypertron. They might not be applicable to the region, or like, you know, we are Southern European.
Right.
We taste a lot of Italian wines. We taste a lot of French wines, you know. So, but sometimes we got to taste Austrian wines and German wines and New Zealand wines, because you need to understand the comparison. You need to understand what people are wanting too. If someone comes into your shop and they want to drink a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and you don't have it, well, what's the next best thing?
Right.
You know,
Right.
like you've got to be able to make that sell, find something that speaks to them, translate it, and do that within a matter of seconds, or they're out the door.
Right.
Like you've lost that opportunity to connect with somebody.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where that expansion comes from. And you've got to allow yourself to be surprised and not be afraid to like something that's outside of the norm, right? Like, yeah, we all like Russo. Like, it's delicious. We all want to drink DRC. We all want to drink Gravito. We all want to drink champagne. Like, you are killing it with your taste. But I think that sometimes, and I see this hesitation a lot too, and when I see someone who isn't hesitant to say, man, I like this, and not afraid to say, I want to drink this blueberry wine or whatever,
Right.
it sparks interest in me about that person, because it means that they're figuring out who they are, and they're unafraid to be able to say that they like something that someone in their peer group, but probably a lot of people outside of their peer group, really would enjoy. Yes. And that's totally fine.
Yes, I think that's a really good point. And, you know, to do what I'm supposed to do here and bring it back to, I love it, Allison.
Oh, thanks, Allie.
You've been a real
Miss
dude.
you.
So, but to bring it back like to Texas wine, right? Like we started out this conversation talking about, I mean, Lewis Dixon, right? Like he's kind of, I used to joke, or I still joke, I'm saying, I think I even wrote it in the book. I call him like the John the Baptist of Texas wine, because he's been out there eating honey and locusts or whatever. But he has charted his own course because of what he likes to drink. And he knew that it wasn't necessarily what everyone liked to drink. Right. But because he stayed true to all of that, he's made a really great name for himself. And I started a column with Texas Monthly a long time ago about where Somms would suggest like their wine of the month. And the first one you ever did for me was his Pétard Blanc, which is Blanc du Bois. And it is a strange wine for those who may not have ever experienced it, but it underlines everything that you've just said, right? That you were willing to say, surprise y'all, this might not be run of the mill, but it's super interesting, you know?
Yeah. And I think that that's what's most important, is being able to say, like, even if you're not quite sure, you can say, I'm surprised by this. I'm intrigued by this. I must taste it again. It's like eating uni. Yeah. Does anybody ever really think that that's really delicious the first time you eat it? Right. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm intrigued by this. And now I'm like, I can't get enough. It's so delicious.
Right.
So I think just like taking a second to step away from the snobbery of trying to say the right thing is going to be, we're all going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, so I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I know you've got a lot going on right now. I love your tasting Broadbent and Texas wines right next to each other. And I think so. Have you had a chance to taste some of the self-hold wines that are coming through, or?
No, I'm actually tasting them tonight.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I haven't tasted a lot of, I mean, because they change every year, and that's the kind of sad and cool part about it is that you're like, well, that's gone forever, but what a wonderful moment that was. So I haven't tasted this lineup, so super excited.
Yeah.
And Lauren, as I said, she's magical. What a great buyer. So she set it all up, and I'm just excited to be a spectator in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she's great. Those wines are great. They're really fun and intriguing. I hope you get a chance to meet Regan, and then also Adrienne Ballou, who has been a winemaker for a little while, doing her own line of wines, but has been helping with him too. So I think they're an exciting departure from the Texas wines we're used to seeing. I think there's room for everyone, but I love what they've been doing, and I'm really glad you guys are going to be doing something with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, June, thank you so much for your time. It's been great to chat with you. I'm always.
Oh, it's so good to catch up. And
yeah.
Congrats on your book. I'm excited about that.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh. See, this is, I'm like used to being the journalist that asks questions and I forget. The whole reason we're talking about this, forgive me, is I do have a new book out called Wines of Southwest USA through the Classic Wine Library, and would love to make sure you get a copy of it in your hands. So if you want to order it, you can actually order a signed copy from me at jessicadupuis.com. There's a button to shop, and I would be happy to send you one. Otherwise, thank you guys for participating and joining us. And June, I'm coming to see you. I'm coming in December.
Please do.
What?
Please, please, please.
I will. I'm coming in December. I'm taking the diploma. The first.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's awesome. I'm totally nervous, but
I will pop champagne. It'll be great.
I'm coming and I'm going to crush something after it. So be ready.
Amazing. Awesome. See you soon. Thanks, y'all.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Talk to you soon.